Shatice said she might come.
Okay. I don't think they put it out like they were supposed to.
All right, ladies, we're live.
We are live? Okay, use our mics. Great. Hello, I am Jennifer. I am nurse practitioner of Behold Wellness Center, and this is Tiffany. She's our certified nutrition coach, and we're here with our live Q&A that we like to do monthly, and this month we're talking about how to decrease your toxic burden. I want to start out by saying that there are over 85,000 chemicals known that are registered with the U.S. that they know about, but I don't think they've really even, I wish I knew the number on how many there actually are like tested. Like we know like the safety data on, but most of those chemicals, we don't have any data on how safe they are, what they're really doing, most of them. One of the biggest ones I think that we normally talk about that goes with food it's usually the food stuff is the glyphosate from Roundup, which is actually within the last few years been proven. There was a case out in California that a guy actually won where the cancer was actually caused from the Roundup. I think he worked as a janitor or in the landscaping company of a school, I think is where he worked. But anyway, he ended up winning, I think, billions of dollars from Roundup. But you can get chemicals from our water, food, medications can have extra toxins in them. A lot of women don't realize this, but they take a lot of antidepressants, and that has lithium in them, and lithium can cause thyroid issues too. Also, any of those heavy metals, from vaccines to supplements, even good supplements have heavy metals in them. What else? Protein powders. Protein powders, Vital Proteins just got caught. They were third-party tested, and they have a lot of heavy metals in them as well.
Yeah, cosmetics, another thing.
Cosmetics.
Home products, cleaning products, yeah.
Those are it, yes. Even baby food recently has been kind of under a lot of scrutiny because there's a lot of heavy metals in it. But even some of those farms, what I was researching, a lot of those farms and things that do make that stuff and have it organic, their issue is that maybe in the soil there was contaminants, but also the wind might have blown those herbicides and pesticides over. And so the farmers can only control so much, but that can come from, obviously, from the other herbicides and pesticides that are used. Wasn't your husband talking about, I might get in trouble for this, about they recently went to Vegas and they were talking with a dispensary there, and one of the dispensaries out there used ladybugs.
Yeah,
it's something else.
Pest control,
yes, for pest control
down,
off the marijuana.
Off the
and I was like, that is such a good idea. Why don't we do more of that? I know I'm going to get in trouble for talking about that. I know, right? Well, that's what I do. Rebel. Where should we put something? You want to talk about food?
Yeah, I mean, with all of it, we are basically bombarded with toxicity every day. I mean, some of the things, like, it's just in our environments, and, the things around it, even candles and things like that can cause such a toxic burden for us. So, I mean, I approach it, being smarter about, like, what I'm using, because even with, like, chemicals and in cosmetics and lotions, like, I was researching, and 60% of things that we put, on us topically winds up in our bloodstream within 26 seconds. I mean, it's so fast.
And skin's the biggest organ, so you can imagine. That can be lotions, it can be even like in your shampoo, toothpaste.
Yeah, soaps. Yeah.
Soaps, even your floss, yeah. Most of your floss that you use is actually lined with Teflon. So there are better flosses. Bite has one, RiseWell has one. Boca, I think, has a floss. They're thicker. It's more a thicker string. But if it's the normal, like, Oral-B that you get from the drugstore, it probably has Teflon on it that you're getting. And you're putting that, in between your teeth. And if you bleed, guess what? That's going into your system. straight in, so you're getting that. But you can also get Teflon from cookware.
Yes.
From
cookware's
nonstick
big.
cookware. So ceramic cookware is good, stainless steel. We use the green pan, I believe. It's like cooking on air, which we really like that one. But you got to be careful with those nonstick pans. Cooking with aluminum foil, you are getting that aluminum in your food that way. Using like plastic, like how many of us have like plastic Tupperware? When you heat that, every time you heat that BPA, which is a carcinogen, which will also mess up your hormones, that's leaking into your food every single time. Even those steam bags, which we were doing for a while, and I was like, oh, we gotta stop doing that. It's organic, but we're cooking it in plastic, so that's not.
Yeah. Oh, the same with like tea bags. We're a big hot tea family. And
Microplastics from the tea.
Yes, yeah. Your safest bet with hot tea is using the loose leaf tea and like a stainless steel strainer. So that's been a change. I was really sad about.
Well, yeah, a lot of the good teas have the microplastics in them, and then that accumulates. It's not really one of those things that unless you're actively detoxing that you're going to get rid of. And when we talk about BPA, that can lead a lot. We all like to breast cancer and things like that. But even the receipts that you get at the store, that's lined with BPA. So they always are like, do you want your receipt? And I'm like, no, I don't want that. Because even by touching it, like you said, you absorb that BPA straight in. I know sometimes you have to take the receipt, but,
Yeah, just minimally. Don't do it often.
I know, I always feel bad for the people that are working in the stores and they're touching the receipts constantly, and I'm like, oh, I wish you were wearing gloves.
Yeah.
Because they're touching the BPA. What are some other? The cleaning products, there's so many chemicals in our house cleaning products. Actually, there was a study done where there was more stay-at-home moms who had more incidence of melanoma, and that was due to all the cleaning products and being in the home instead of being outside more. They were getting a lot more incidence of the melanoma and cancers. And yeah, like being inside is actually a lot more dangerous with the chemicals. If you get a new house or new furniture, new carpet, there's a thing called baking the house where if you can leave, this is the hard part, if you can leave for a few days and turn the heater up as high as you can and then leave that on, and then in a few days air it all out, and you'll basically burn off those VOCs and those chemicals, like those heat-resistant chemicals that's like in everything.
Oh yeah, and pajamas. Those are really big in like children's pajamas too, and you don't want to sleep.
Well, yeah,
in
they
that.
smell funny because they have that that smell of the chemical of the heat retardant stuff, which most people don't smoke these days anymore. Like that's really, people do smoke, which that's a whole other toxic burden. But that's why a lot of our stuff, furniture and stuff and the clothes and even in our cars have the flame retardant stuff, is because of people who used to smoke all the time and drop their smoke and then stuff would fire. But now we're realizing like that's in your mattress, that's in your couch. We didn't do that.
Yeah, pajamas, pillows, pillowcases, all of that.
Isn't there a Netflix documentary? There's a Netflix documentary about pajamas. The dad or the mom, when the kids opened up the PJs for Christmas, that smelled like they smelled the chemical smell, and they sent it off for third-party testing, and it was a bunch of really bad chemicals that were on it, and it was all the flame retardant stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So be careful when you're choosing, especially for children. Like be careful with the clothes and all of that, and their bedding and all.
Right. And then when you're washing them, there's always like laundry detergents. I really like the Zum brand by Indigo Wild, ZUM. They're even at Walmart, and they're made with like essential oils instead of the fragrance in them. Branch Basics has a good brand. Using just plain borax, baking soda, things like that. Borax will actually help you get out the mold in clothing too. That's a whole other topic of toxic burden. What else with that laundry? So like if you're like she was talking about when you wear clothing and you absorb 60% within 26 seconds of what you washed your clothes with. I mean, if you wash your clothes with something with high fragrance on it, you're going to absorb that all day long. And so that's going to mess up your, not only are you absorbing that in, but we don't know what it's doing to your DNA. We don't know what it's doing to your hormones. Because a lot of those things with fragrances, a lot of those chemicals, what we're seeing is that it's messing with our hormones. Since 1973, men's sperm count has dropped by 60%. And I was seeing that if it hits like 72, that's becoming like 72%, that's becoming extinctable numbers if we're not careful with the endocrine disruptors that are in all of our food, personal care products in our environment. And I know a lot of this sounds extremely overwhelming because it's like, well, what do we do if there's 85,000 chemicals that we know of and we don't know all the safety of them? So what are some things that we can do? We can, of course, detox. More than ever, the human race has never been bombarded with this many chemicals. We cannot evolutionarily overcome this fast with how many chemicals are in our environment. Yeah. If we don't, so it's almost like, yeah, I detox all the time and tell people to detox all the time, but it's almost like you have to kind of stay up, on top of it, because if not, that's when the sickness comes into place. So the chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Although Parkinson's has been considered more of a type 3 diabetes, there is still some incidents where toxins do cause that. Fibromyalgia can be from toxins, it can be from mold, it can be from heavy metals. Hypothyroid used to really be more of something we saw in women, but now it's becoming more men. We're seeing it a lot more in men. Infertility. What are some
even
cancers?
Mental disorders.
Mental health, if you don't think that that's not from some of these chemicals and toxic burden. Like ADHD and ADD with kids, or even adults, a lot of that goes back to artificial sweeteners and artificial, the preservatives. Like Red 40 has really been linked with ADD and ADHD in kids. So that's another thing, that cancer is a big, big thing. I don't think I think now they're saying by, 2050, it'll be one in every two every 1 in 2 will die from cancer. Or will have cancer. So it's getting to be ridiculous. So we always suggest going through a detox protocol with us, but there are ways of filtering out your water, changing your containers that you use to store food and to heat it up with glass, drink water out of glass, stainless steel, ceramic is good, changing your cookware, personal care products. Just about all my makeup, I've just about 100% changed over to cleaner makeup.
We're slowly getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly making the changes. I've always been big on just food, eating mostly organic, trying to stay away from the chemicals and that highly processed foods that's just loaded with, I believe more stuff than what they actually put on the label, and you can't guarantee what's in your food unless you have it, you're growing it, you're making it yourself. So just staying away from processed foods is a big deal, and cleaning up, the toxicity in the house, all the fragrances, switching to essential oils.
Well, fragrances are just as bad as secondhand smoke.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Tell everybody if they want to question based on anything that you already said. Text us at 940.
Okay. So if you guys have any questions right now about anything we're talking about, you can text 940-783-5761. And Chad will let us know. And 940-783-5761. Sorry. Yeah. Text us if you have any questions. I did have one from Instagram. I don't know if it's time for that one yet, but let's see. She asked, redefine chapter. She asked testing for toxic burden. Is it through the hair, nails, blood? Will each show something different. So when I test for chemicals, I don't particularly test for each and every one. I just do the blood work, and there are certain things that will, like if your ferritin's high or super low, it could be either parasites or it could be like heavy metal toxicity. If you're having a lot, like even if your CRP, which is a good inflammation marker, if that's high, the toxic burden is usually super high. If you're looking to test for like heavy metals, the best way to test is hair. There's a hair minerals test that we can do to test for that, because you're getting it over the lifetime of how long. There is sometimes they do it where you take a pill, like a chelator. It's called a chelator. It helps you kind of like bind. It kind of pulls out metals, and you pee it out, and they test your urine over 6 hours. But that's really, if you're doing one like that, that's saying like, hey, there's an exposure like right now. There's something that you're exposed to right now. So there's a, like, are you exposed to mercury right now? There's something in it that, like, probably maybe your silver fillings. Maybe that's what it is. There's not really like a good way to test. It's usually like by signs and symptoms, how you feel. But then the way that I read the blood work, there are times where I'm like, oh, that's probably from toxicity, or you don't detox well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any questions? Any?
No questions?
No? Okay.
Not yet. There's some natural foods that you can do to help pull some heavy metals if you want to. Cilantro. Cooking with cilantro is really good. Also, chlorophyll is another one that a lot of people will use to take heavy metals out. But I always suggest working with somebody that knows how to detox those in a proper way, because just pulling them out you can really kind of get into a mess with that. I also, what? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say dandelion and milk thistle too will
Yes.
help like support the liver and
Yes.
get that stuff out.
Glutathione is a big antioxidant. It is made by the liver, and it is one of the best. It's like your main detoxifier. Some people supplement it. If you're going to do that, liposomal glutathione's the best. We do it IV in the center to kind of do it. One of the labs that I look at, a GDT, will tell me if it's too low, it means that you need glutathione. Overseas, they use coffee enemas, believe it or not. Jesus' face. A coffee enema, don't do it unless like a practitioner says to do it, but it's one of those things that you can increase your glutathione production by 700% by doing just one. I would say one a week if you're going to do it. Make sure it's organic coffee. Don't burn yourself with it.
And know what you're doing.
Yeah, know what
yes.
you're doing. Work with somebody who does it.
That's why it's important to work with someone.
They do it overseas for cancer, like to get rid of to help with cancer. Yes.
Decaf? No.
Actually, Lane asked decaf. You actually want like lighter coffee. The lighter the coffee, the better. If it's too dark, it's not going to work as well. But the lighter coffee is the better coffee to use if you're going to do it. Chad's a fan. I know Chad loves it. Yeah. Yes.
Question. Everybody. Since we've been dealing with COVID for a couple of years, I've noticed with different hand sanitizers that it actually will eat up and break my fingernails.
If you want to talk about hand sanitizer, so Lane is asking about, like, as with COVID, now hand sanitizers like everywhere, and he feels like it's breaking down your hands and stuff like that.
Fingernails.
And fingernails. I hate hand sanitizer. Yeah. I know, well, if you have to use it, that's one thing. I used it a ton in the hospital, and then when I was not working in the hospital anymore, I had to get fingerprints done again for my license because I had done the ones, and it took me 5 times. I didn't have fingerprints from washing my hands and from the hand sanitizer. The thing with most hand sanitizers, unless it's just like pure alcohol, that's one thing, and it is going to dry out your skin, and you do absorb it. It does and can lead to leaky gut. It can make it worse. So it's
Kills your bacteria.
yeah, it's messing up like your your good microbiome. So like your skin has a microbiome, and so does your gut, but that is getting into your system. But yeah, it is breaking down your hands and drying them out. I always say soap and water is by far the best. Yes, not like antibacterial, nothing with fragrance in it, just regular soap. C. diff, I don't know if you've ever heard of C. difficile that some people get. So C. diff is a natural bacteria that you have in your gut. And when you take too many antibiotics, you can be like that bad bacteria, or normally good bacteria, becomes overrun. And C. diff can kill you from dehydration. And as a nurse, I will never forget the smell of C. diff. But hand sanitizer will not kill it. You have to use soap and water with it. So, and then it lives on surfaces for a long time too. So that's why I'm always like, I don't know if like C. diff ruined me, but I'm always like soap and water if you're gonna wash your hands, if anything. And I think after so many times of using it, I think it's after 3 times or so, you're just building that layer up. It's not even good anymore, yeah. So I'm not a fan of hand sanitizer. It's not my favorite.
Well, and I was just gonna say, like, one of the ways to like be detoxing on a regular basis is having a healthy gut microbiome. Like, you've got to have the healthy bacteria that's going to help that when you do come in contact with things that is not a good service to your body, that's why your immune system kicks in. You know, it's gonna take care of that stuff that's coming in. So for always, you know, using things that are compromising our gut bacteria, our immune systems are going to be such a mess. So that's just one of the ways, like fixing your microbiome is a great way to get a full body detox.
Yes. Well, and when you're doing those, I think there's an overabundance of like too much cleaning, but one of the greatest things in healthcare that's ever happened in the last 100 years is hand washing and like sanitation and stuff. I mean, sewer systems and all of that, that's probably by far one of the best things that's ever happened for humans is that. But there is some things where there's like overuse of it. And I think they looked at kids who have allergies, and the kids who've never grown up with a dishwasher don't have as many food allergies and things as kids who did grow up. Yeah, so like there is like a thing with that over sanitation. Like you need good bacteria, you need all that good stuff. It's just that we've become now, I think, so used to like no germs. Now we're afraid of them when that's really not the case. There's bacteria everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you have more bacteria in your body than you do human cells.
Yes, that's true.
It's just so important that you...
Jennifer, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So post-pandemic, during the pandemic, we've learned a lot of methods and practices to fight off disease and stuff like that. Is that hurting us or helping us? Those methods that we're using, based on what you just said.
So Chad just asked, with the pandemic, or post-pandemic as we're coming out of it, are all these things that we've learned, are they hurting us? Is that what you're basically asking? Yeah. I think...
As far as our toxic burden.
As our toxic burden. So those chemicals and things like Lysol and things that they use, that's not good for us, like at all. Things like lemon with like vinegar and water, Branch Basics, those like non-baking soda, things like those types of cleaning that are more natural is better for us. But the overabundance of all these chemicals, I mean, we're breathing that in, you're touching it, you know. I don't know, I think it's been worse for us.
Like instead of shaking hands with fist pumping.
Like shaking hands instead of fist pumping. Well, it's like that's like when everybody, like we were locked down for so long, and then when we came all back, everybody was getting sick. Your immune system has to work out. You have to be around people. We are made to be in a community and be around people, and when we didn't do that, and then you saw like RSV last year in the summer was a big thing around here. Well, yeah, because the kids are filing back around. You're never going to get rid of these things. What the main goal, I think, with even detoxing and and decreasing your toxic burden is making your body the best and healthiest that it can be, so that when you do come in contact of that, you're not living in fear of that either, of that you're going to get these things. You're able to overcome them so much. It's that germ theory versus terrain theory. So germ theory is like, oh, there's the flu, you're going to get it. Where it's terrain theory is over here, where it's like, no, I'm okay. I have these things that are going to boost my immune system. I've been detoxing. I'm taking a multivitamin that's good, all that stuff. No, I can handle it and go through it. But that's like, you have to like, when you get sick, don't always think, oh my God, I'm sick. It's, oh, I'm building my immune system. I'm working it out. You know, it's not always a bad thing.
Exposure.
Yep.
And, you know, even through the pandemic, I very much struggled with the fact that, you know, fast food restaurants were open, they closed gyms. Like, I mean, it was so backwards with, like, not talking about what supplements we need to take, getting outside in the sun. No, we've got to stay indoors. We've got to be locked in. We've got to be, you know, away, not exposed to any germs. So it's like, wait a second. We've got to keep our immune systems built up. We don't need to be eating things that are going to compromise the immune system. We still need to be exercising. We still need vitamin D. We need some extra supplements. We need some extra immune boosters. So that fear.
It's a mindset change.
It is a mindset change, because exposure in safe ways. I would never, you know, take
in safe ways.
Where I knew that there were people sick.
Chicken
you know
pox parties.
Like, if you're sick, stay home. It's just that.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling well. But for the rest of us, you know, like, we still have to be around. We still have to be in our communities. And, you know, one of the best things for my kids with building their immune system is getting outside, getting in nature, getting in dirt, you know, playing with other kids, all of that.
Sunshine.
Parks. Yeah, sunshine. I mean, all of that helps to build our immune system. So when we do come in contact with something, which is only a matter of time.
There's 85,000 chemicals.
Absolutely.
You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah, so the goal is to have a strong immune system, so that our bodies can handle what we're exposed to.
Right. Well, like you're talking, I think the issue that as we talk about like post stuff like this, it's our healthcare system is based off of like, you get sick, oh, here's your symptoms, this is the box you're in, right? Oh, you have all these symptoms, here's IBS, when it's probably parasites, glyphosate, like your diet, things that like everything else that's around you, are gluten. Gluten's a big thing. And what I really think, I think Steven Crowder was just talking about this today, or Chad was playing it earlier, he was like, it's a mind change in the way that we need to think about our health, where what really the focus needs to be is being healthier, detoxing, doing those good supplements, working out, eating right, and then you need the other. It's it's the reverse of what we need to do. Yeah.
Well, and something also like being healthy, you know, like diet's not just about food. Like,
no.
It's also about like our soul. Like, what are we watching? What are we reading? What are we looking at? Who are we hanging out with? You know, like friends, toxic relationships, all of that stuff. Like, as you're looking at decreasing your toxic load, you also have to look at the environment around you, not just like what your physical body's coming in contact with, but your soul, your spirit. All of those things will definitely increase your toxic burden if you are not guarding that garden well, you know?
Well, there was a study they looked at. You're more likely to be overweight if your friends are overweight, not if your family is, because that's how much community and friendships and relationships matter. It's all, so if your friends are overweight and doing bad things, you pick up those bad habits. You are who you hang around. That also will affect your health too. So it's a lot of that mental health.
Oh, habits, I mean, it's such a huge thing, you know, and as you're changing and detoxing, and, you know, I mean, we have to do that with food. Whenever you're looking at food, it's not just like taking away and looking at, okay, the diet changes that I need to make. What am I looking for? That I'm going from like being deprived of these things. Like, it's changing your habits. It's saying this is not actually producing the good of my body that I want. So I have to begin to create new habits. And it's the same with like our friendships and with the relationships around us. Like, where do you need to be in this season? Who do you need to be with? And who do you need to be listening to? Like, how do you need to be filling that? And it's just so important what you do on a daily basis, like how you're feeding yourself, spirit, soul, and body. That's a big thing that I'm going through right now. As we reset, which always at the beginning of the year, like that's a time to reset, get a fresh vision for your year. It's not just about weight loss. That's only like a side, it's something on the side.
Well, sometimes you don't lose weight because of emotional traumas and stress and things, because your body does remember those things. Like when I'm detoxing people, sometimes like where they were exposed to things like mold or something, if there was a trauma involved in like that situation where they were found out they were in mold, when you start to detox mold, guess what? Those emotions that are attached with that, those pop up again. So if you didn't deal with them then, you're going to have to deal with them at some time. I'm really bad about dealing with my emotions, I'll be honest. Working in the ICU, you learn to like move on. Like you cannot sit there and like process it, and so it's like you almost have to process it later. I always told Chad when we were dating, I was like, I don't think I do have probably some trauma from like dating guys, but like, or emotional stuff, but like really my trauma is from working in the ICU for so long. And I was meeting with a nurse last week, or maybe, no, it was last week, and she was telling me she had a stillborn, and she went and she birthed that stillborn and went home and acted like she did like just at work. Like she worked in the NICU, she worked in all of that in labor and delivery, and she just treated it like another stillborn she saw at work. And she was like, I'm just now years later realizing that I needed to deal with that and what that did to me. And so you will see health issues pop up of stuff that you did not deal with in the past.
Well, and it's important, like I call them like brain dumps, and I really try to get my kids to do that in some capacity, whether they're talking to me or writing it out or drawing pictures or something like that, because I know for me, like in this season, like with my kids and everything that I'm running around doing, I'm not always aware of like my emotional state in the middle of it, because we're just going from one thing to the next, and I can't stop and slow down, but I've been trying to make it a point, at least in the evenings, to get in check with where I'm at, what kind of frustrations, like what do I need to kind of like dump, what do I need to get out? So like journaling, praying for
gratitude.
Something gratitude is really important, and just learning to slow down and be aware, because it's really common with motherhood that you're aware of your stress, like when you're acting out, like when you're frustrated, when you're yelling, when you're sharp, with your family, all of that. You don't want to wait for those times. So slowing down your pace a little bit to be more in tune.
Well, as moms, we're so used to being so self-sacrificing.
It's like a mommy market.
Yeah, and you can't help fill your kids' cups if your cup is so empty. Like you can't fill anybody else's cup if yours is empty too. And as moms, we just do that. I mean, I'm guilty of doing it too, where I have to like sometimes tell Chad, I'm like, I need a moment, for me. But as moms, we're really, really bad about.
Very bad.
Yes, literally.
Yeah.
Literally bad.
Well, but even with like in the home, like if you have children, like you're setting that example. You are like causing an impact to be imprinted on your children with how you're living, like what your habits are. That's definitely imprinting on your kids. And so one of the things that in our house, like we've really tried to change and like create a culture of overcoming, like spirit, soul, and body. And what does this look like? And it's a big healing journey that you go on as a family. But we've definitely been enjoying the healthier habits that we've been practicing and instilling in our kids, and just the changes that have come because we're more intentional with decreasing our toxicity all the way around.
Right, so you can do things like the deliverance piece like that, like we do here, and doing some things to like work through that. I mean, you can always ask God to show you something, and usually it happens when I'm driving or I'm walking, and I'm like, oh, I need to deal with that. Oh, that's where that came from. That's where that emotion came from. But we work with a counselor in the center. We refer people to Whitney. She's a licensed counselor. She's fairly priced, and I think she'll meet you anywhere, do telehealth, but she's really good. Sometimes you don't need to, sometimes some of us have work up here a lot, or with the church, we're here too much, and sometimes it's okay to go outside. I think you've had counseling outside.
I drove all the way to Gainesville just to make sure.
Do you want our dirty laundry aired out?
That's what you have to do. And we've had many seasons, throughout like our marriage, throughout our family life, that it's like, okay, we need to take a break and go see a counselor, you know. And I know growing up for me, that I grew up in a pastor's family, multiple generations of pastor's family, that was never really anything that you were allowed to do, was address like hurts. You weren't allowed to talk about it. We just had to keep like up our image. And I ended up being like a whistleblower in my family to say like, I am not participating in that anymore. And I kind of, you know, went off on my own and began to find, a rebel. I prefer to go rogue, but yes, I guess I'm a little bit of a rebel. And it was the best thing that I ever did. It was the best thing that I ever did to like venture out into new areas, and I began to like gain new tools. And it's a part of the healing process, because your body, your mind, your relationships, they get into a mess, and it's normally over a period of time, you know, and not paying attention, not like, I mean, even how the Bible talks about catching the foxes that spoil the vine. Like, if we're too busy, we're not really paying attention to what's going on around us, and eventually it catches up.
Well, one of our patients, we stopped detox with her because she just kept self-sabotaging herself, is what she kept doing. And we both met with her, several times, in multiple meetings, and we were like, listen, we think you need to go talk to somebody and get that worked out of why you keep doing this, and then come back to us. Like, we're open, but there are sometimes when we're doing it, like, I'll take a step back and be like, maybe detox isn't right for you at this moment, but maybe the emotional aspect. Or like, we had a patient this week where I was like, you know what? I don't think detox is going to work unless you have your diet right. Why even do detox if you're not going to get your diet together? Yeah. And so exactly. So I was like, you need to meet with Tiffany and do that for 3 months before we start detoxing. Yes, you need to. Here are some things you can start doing and implementing in your lifestyle, but like, the detox is going to be for nothing unless you get your diet together. And that's such a big piece. Like, you can't out-train a bad diet.
You cannot. Or out-supplement.
Yeah,
you can. It's
yeah,
bad,
you can't, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, even so with my weight loss journey, when I had my third child, I actually weighed more than my husband, which I'm 5'3", like, I'm a little, you know, petite thing. I did not need to put on that much weight through my pregnancy, but I thought, he's raising his hand in the back. You know, I just enjoyed my pregnancy. I ate terrible, you know, gained a lot of weight. But the things that changed in my body was I had him, and then I turned 30. Major changes went on, like, hormonally. Then I also had 3 children and had to figure out, like, how am I going to even find the time to piece together healthy things and eat right and move and all of this stuff, you know. But then I also had just a load of just like toxicity, like with internal stuff and with emotional stuff. And so it took me a long journey. It didn't have to take me as long as it did. You know, I spent about 5 years working to my weight goal, but this was the first time in my life that I did it healthy. And I took my time, and there were seasons of counseling, and there were seasons of deliverance, there were seasons where I had to like clean up my diet a little bit more, get that more in check, and then there were times like I had to push myself exercising more. So through that season of weight loss, like, the weight wasn't the issue. That was just a symptom of what I was dealing with. I had a whole load of other issues that I had to clean up, and I gave myself grace. Like, I learned new tools. I definitely changed up my lifestyle and found a way that I could continue doing what I'm doing until I'm 80.
Right. And sometimes the body won't release weight. You won't lose weight unless if the body if it's in survival mode, no matter how much you weigh, it's not going to release weight. So if your emotions too stressed out, not dealing with stress, things like that, body will not. It's like it's in survival mode. It's not going to release weight. Another reason why you might have some issues losing weight, it can be toxins. It can be something that you're ingesting. The fat cells will encapsulate it around those toxins. That's why you have it. So until you start detoxing and releasing those toxins, decreasing your toxic burden, sometimes that too is part of why you can't lose weight. Mold makes it very, 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 very hard to lose weight. It causes a lot of weight loss resistance for people, and mold is very, very hard to detox as well. It takes a long time to kind of get mold out. It's very, very, it's a pain in the butt, yeah. But yeah, so if you have stressors, like the emotional stuff, if your body is in that survival mode, you're not going to lose weight.
Oh, that's the truth. Well, and even, like, I tried, you know, what I did, like, as a teenager or through my early 20s, where you could just, like, eat as much as you wanted to and then just, like, tap it out in the gym, you know?
Yeah.
And my body would go in the opposite direction. Like, I would get more inflammation. I would start to gain weight. It was just like my body, no amount of punishment for the state that I was in. You know, because sometimes people, you know, will say, well, I'm just going to hit the gym harder. I'm going to do this, do that. But I had so many different hurdles. It's like my body was not responding until I dealt with each hurdle. And that was my journey. But I very much enjoy like problem solving with people. That's why I also loved health coaching and wanted to add that to like my nutrition part, because I love playing detective and trying to work with people to figure out like, okay, is this a counseling issue? Is this a food issue? Is this a gym issue? Is this a sleep issue? Detox issue, whatever it might be. And I do think it's like different things, you know, and you have to find where you need to be.
Well, all these things, stress, toxins, diet, all those things affect everybody differently. And you're like, it's a detective work that we do to kind of figure out with people, how is this affecting you? You know, it's trying to figure out what's right for what person, because we're all bio-individual, and so not everybody's cookie cutter. And so, yeah, these signs and symptoms probably are this, but maybe is it something else, you know? And so it's always kind of like, it is playing that detective work too. And then too, so like people are always, I've seen this a lot lately when people are like, well, you know, my mom had this or my dad had that. Genetics are only 10% of all cancers or any health issue. It's genetics is only 10%. It's lifestyle, diet, emotions, the, you know, opportunistic infections. It's those things that pull the trigger.
Your habits.
Yeah, your habits, yeah. So genetics load the gun. Everything else pulls the trigger. So it's just figuring those things out.
But to me, that's incredibly encouraging, though, because that means that you really do have a lot of power in your hands to make sure that you're creating like a very healthy, successful lifestyle, you know, and building a healthier life, you know. It just took me a while to put those pieces together, you know, and also give myself permission to build a healthy life for myself, you know, and really take what it meant for me individually, you know.
Well, I think what's so frustrating for people too is like when you, like let's say the Super Bowl party stuff that happened on Sunday that I'm sure a lot of people went to, it's like, oh, you're not eating, or you ate before, like that's weird, or you brought something healthy to eat. Why is that weird? And like, why are we like that with that? You know, those people should be applauded for taking those healthier life decisions, but that's what makes it sometimes so hard and tough to change is when everybody else around you is not, or they're giving you crap for it.
Yeah.
Too, that doesn't help. But you just have to give your permission. It's almost like you have to fight nowadays. Like you have to fight to want to be healthy, and I know that's frustrating and a pain in the butt. Like I know one of the ones we saw that we told her to change her diet, she's like, well, my husband, that's the hardest part, is getting him on board. And I was like, maybe he'll see. Yeah, you're going to have to just like, this is a time in your life where you have to do it for you and nobody else. And everybody else be darned.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I'm going to read a quote that I found today. It says, there's only one way to avoid criticism, and that's do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. And you have to just realize, like, sorry, like, I'm just going to be respectfully honoring those around you. Like, it's not an issue of, like,
is it because you think they're feeling bad? It's probably because they feel guilty because they're not being good, too. And that's probably, they're putting that back on you.
Yeah, but for me, like, the thing that pushed me, and still pushes me to make changes, is I just get miserable repeating and eating the fruit of whatever I'm planting.
Tired of yo-yo dieting. Tired of,
yes.
Not
Oh my
feeling
gosh,
good.
I'm so sick of like the dieting and all of that stuff. I just don't even like I don't know, I was in just the struggle of it and just the frustration of it. And then I just began to look like, well, what in my life is producing this? And that's what I need to change. I need to change like my habits. I need to change what I'm filling myself with in my environment.
Well, your self-talk
Self-talk's
has a lot of it to do too. I mean, like what you say and think about yourself, you are like, I don't like to use this word, like not manifested, but you are kind of what you're saying about yourself. You become that. Like what you speak does happen. And so when you're doing that self-talk, I have to remind myself not to do that. I'm really bad about doing that. And so things like the gratitude helps every day. Some people do really good, like writing those affirmations or good things, you know, on like just saying those good things about yourself over and over until you believe them. It's the same thing when it comes to like stress and fears that we have. It's our beliefs that are causing that. Where did that come from? And I think that's always something I always try to tell people is like, ask the whys, and where did that come from, and why do I believe that? Is that something that my mom believed? When it came to, like, I grew up with my dad traveling all the time, and my mom was stuck with me and my brother by herself in a 42-foot mobile home with like maybe a phone, maybe 3 channels, if that, on the TV, and for days on end. And so when it came to Chad traveling after we had our son, I would have anxiety really bad, and he would be like, what? Where is this coming from? Because you used to like run an ICU of like 30-bed ICU and you used to do all this stuff, but you can't handle it too, like your son. And then what it was my mom's, like God pointed that out, it was my mom's anxiety that I had picked up on over the years, and I had to be like, that is not mine. That is not mine. And so by doing that, that really has helped. So when he does travel, yes, there's still a little stress, but it's not like it was. It was debilitating. No, it was. It was almost debilitating to me where I could not do it unless my parents were over, which is so weird, right? I have a master's degree. I've seen kids. I've done all this stuff with this, and it's like I couldn't do it. And it was my mother's anxiety that I picked up on as a kid. Not realizing, never knew it was a thing until.
Well, I had the same thing happen to me because I could see patterns of fear and like anxiety and things like that, like with the women in my family. And so when I began like addressing that stress in my life and asking the Lord, I was like, show me where the root is, show me where, because I didn't even see it in my kids, you know, just an extreme root of fear, like irrational fear and anxiety. Yeah. And I remember I went home to visit my family one time, and I went to see my grandmother. And when I visited with her, it's just great. I mean, she's 86 years old. I love her so much. We've always had such a close relationship. But when I left her house and I got in the van and I was pulling away, like the Lord said, he said it in the 1950s, she had made like a statement. There was some kind of trauma that happened with her sometime in the 50s, and it created such fear and anxiety in her. She made like a statement of vow and over the women in our family. And so I broke that off, and from that moment on, I saw such a change, like in my own life, in my children's life, you know, in relation to fear and anxiety.
That's that epigenetics piece that I keep talking about of like genes turning on and off. But they did do a study with the mice with cherry blossom, where they would spray the scent of cherry blossoms, and when it did that, they would get shocked. So it actually got passed down into the next generation, and when they smelt that, they would act in fear, and they never were shocked. But because of what had happened to their parents, with that, so those things do get passed down. When you're pregnant, you carry 3 generations with you: yourself, your child, and the next generation. So sometimes you have to look at your parents, but sometimes you have to go back to the grandparents too and deal with things that are back there. Yeah.
That's the truth. Like Aaron and I have really been the first. My parents really started cleaning up like our bloodline when we're speaking from like a spiritual standpoint. But my husband and I both have been like the first in our family to really like dive deeper, and it gets messy. It gets messy whenever you're doing that, but somebody has to clean it up and make it easier for the next generation. Then they're going to make it easier for the next generation. I mean, that's what we want to cultivate.
Yes.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so it's not, so we're talking about toxins, we're not just talking about like, it's so easy, yes, to go change your hair care products and things like that, but there's much more deeper stuff than just the other, just the surface, just the food, all that, which I know can be like overwhelming too, but I think you just gotta piece by piece by piece. Yes?
You had mentioned a situation when someone was going through a detox process, they hit a wall. Is it more so, is it physical breakdown or is it the emotional breakdown as they're going through the detox? Which is higher? Is it mostly emotional or is it the physical that they're going through that they hit a wall, you know?
So Shatise is asking, when we're doing the detox and stuff, we know that somebody's hitting a wall. Is it the physical or is it the emotional? And usually for us, we've noticed it's an emotional piece, that something they have to deal with.
That's affecting the physical.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's affecting the physical. Yes. So detox, yeah, it's not just, I mean, that's when I do a detox, yeah, it's supplements and stuff. I feel like sometimes when you're taking the supplements and you're doing the food, like you're physically doing it. It's like sometimes you physically have to like go through some of those things, like, okay, yes, I'm taking this pill and this is the supplement, this is what it's doing. But as you're doing it, it's like things are going to start to peel away and your body will be like, hey, you need to deal with this and you need to deal with that. You know, the emotional aspects of stuff that does come up. One of our patients, for her, she's been like doing great, but when she got to the heavy metals and molds, there were some things when she was exposed to those, some very big traumas like with her job and stuff, and she was like, I feel like I'm back there again, like I feel like I'm back in that. And I was like, well, let's take a step back. And I was like, she's like, I thought I had dealt with those things, but I was like, well, there's something there that's getting hit on. And I think for her it was the fear. She didn't deal with the fear of that. She dealt with everything else, like, you know, the unforgiveness, all that stuff, and the anger, but she never dealt with the fear part of that. So she had to go back and deal with it. And then once she did, it was like, okay, now I can continue. But yeah, it's kind of amazing, the fear stuff. I didn't think we would talk so much about emotions, but I guess
Maybe somebody can see her.
hear all the toxic stuff that comes up with, you know.
There are lots of comments that people are learning from them.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
With the pandemic.
The
Yeah.
pandemic
that is
has,
true.
yes.
Dealt with it, you're like, you didn't realize you were suppressing because you're and then all of a sudden you see that you're kind of
Right, yeah.
chemical imbalance. No,
No.
it's not.
Yeah, why is mental illness such a thing right now during the pandemic? It's like, okay, so all this time now you're stuck with your husband or your significant other, and now you have to deal with like what's going on in your marriage because everybody's stuck in the house. Like, yeah, I know that came up, but then like people weren't moving, people weren't going outside, people weren't around everybody. What were you eating? Because what you take in, you know, you're either upregulating or downregulating your DNA, and so like that, those preservatives and stuff mess with your gut microbiome, and that's where your melatonin, most of your serotonin, that neurotransmitter, is made in your gut. I think 80% of it is made in your gut, and so when you're eating bad, no wonder you feel bad. And so yeah, like that all brought up, like the pandemic kind of brought up stuff that people needed to kind of realize and deal with.
Yeah, it hit triggers. Because there was no escape anymore. Like
No.
when you were told, go indoors, you know, off the doors, you can't come out. I mean, then you're left there to face, you can't distract, you can't busy yourself away from whatever mess, you know, you're in. And so that was like ended up being a perfect time for our family to like
Perfect storm for stuff.
hit the brakes and begin to like really, you know, dive into our relationship, dive into our family dynamics, spiritually dive into it, and just begin to like let the Lord really like tear down what needs to be torn down. It's not healthy, not what you need, and then begin to put some healthier pieces in. Well, and I do think it's important because you talked about like gratitude and self-talk and all of that, you know, especially now that, you know, being post-pandemic, like we're gonna have to go and renew our minds. You know, I even see that like with my kids. I mean, they were terrified. And when
There is some trauma with it, I
Yes.
think, with
Yeah.
post-COVID stuff. You know, like I really feel for like these nurses and healthcare providers. You know, I can only imagine, like, when I worked H1N1, that was a pretty big deal. We were running out of ventilators. We were promoting people then. But I know the traumas I have from working in healthcare. I can't imagine, like, those nurses for a long time, like, risked their life. Like, they really were in that mental state of, like, I risked my life and went to work every day. And then now they're getting crapped on by, administration and things like that. And, had forced to mandated with stuff. Thing I won't say. So it's like, Supreme Court said everybody else wasn't mandated to, but healthcare workers were mandated to. Like, we're not part of everybody else, I guess not, or don't have medical freedom. Like, that's not okay too. But I can't imagine, like, I hated wearing masks and gowning up in PPE when I worked in there. I can't imagine now where they have to do it like every day and things like that, or like afraid if you went home. I know one of my friends who, I haven't talked to her actually in a long time, I probably need to reach out to her. But the hospital I used to work at, they ended up getting most of the COVID patients. And so she, for the longest time, she said it messed me up mentally because I worked in the COVID. I didn't want to be around anybody and give it to them. She was so scared of that. So I really applaud and appreciate our healthcare workers and what they went through. But at the same time, I'm so worried about their traumas that they went through. The kids, these kids have had to work,
Their whole life changed.
Yeah, everybody's life changed. And then, like, for us, Chad used to travel. They used to do 400,000 miles a year. So, like, he had to be home for the first time in our marriage, and that was fun.
That's a big change.
Well, even Aaron traveled.
Yeah. Well, and one of the biggest traumas for me was, I remember Aaron was actually on a trip the day before they ended up putting us on lockdown, and he ended up calling me from the airport, and he's like, "I'm on my way home. They're about to lock down the country. Like, they're about to shut everything down. Go to Costco and get supplies. Like, buy everything you have." I immediately, like, felt this panic in me, just thinking, oh my God, I gotta go to Costco. What does this even mean? What's it gonna look like? And I remember, like, the shelves being bare and people, like, the line being all the way to the back. Me just looking through here and finding, like, how long is this gonna last? I don't know what this looks like. I can't believe I'm having to do this.
Stuff we've never had to deal with.
It was so traumatizing.
It was, yeah.
Still now, when I go grocery shopping, I still have to deal with the anxiety that I have from that moment. And I remember Aaron telling me, a while back, he was like, "I don't think you have to keep spending this much on groceries. Like, I think you're okay. We're stocked up. It's okay. Like, you can, like, take your foot off the pedal a little bit." But
or like
he understood,
for me.
Yeah, toilet paper. That was a big one. But he understood it from me, like, as a mom, that I just thought, what do you mean you're locking this down? Like, what do you mean my kids are?
I was scared. I had diapers.
Terrifying. Yes.
I bought so many diapers.
Yeah. But that was a trauma that I've had to be, like, working out of, like, asking the Lord to help heal me, and then just simmer down, because you can go back to those places. Something will happen that'll trigger that memory, and then just thinking about a traumatic memory will cause every part of your system to begin to relive that.
I think it's 90 seconds. So if you replay something in your mind for 90 seconds, it can become a behavior and a permanent thought. So you always, biblically, we have to mind our thoughts.
Yeah.
What's that verse?
Yes.
I'm bad about that. But that's why I married a pastor. He can tell me what that. But like 90 seconds of it will start to become a permanent thought or belief. So you always have to check those. I think Dr. Daniel Amen, he's the one that does the SPECT scans and stuff, and he talks about that. You will have millions of thoughts that are not yours or not right, but what are you choosing to believe? And so those thoughts can become toxic, and you can believe false stuff about yourself, about your spouse, about your kids, about your lifestyle, all those things.
Well, that's the way that anxiety works, which is why it's so tricky. And I've had to heal from so much anxiety. You could be sitting in a totally safe room by yourself, and if you start thinking and playing out, I'm being attacked by a bear, if you start playing that out, eventually your stress is going to go up, your heart is going to begin to race, like your body is going to respond like you're actually being chased by a bear. And so that's one of those things.
That's a
like
survival thing.
as you're, going through dealing with like toxicity, what are you dwelling on? Like, what are you thinking about? You've got to make sure that you're keeping your thoughts in line with truth. And I tell that to my kids, one of the best books that I read on like helping children with anxiety is just saying, like, is this like your truth brain, or is your brain just telling you a lie? Because you can't believe every thought that comes into your mind. Like, you can't take it as truth. And so like anytime my kids would have like a thought of anxiety that I knew, well, there's no truth in that, then we would go back and just say, like, let's think about this. Like, are you really in harm? Are you in a safe place? Like, we would just immediately begin to speak truth to cancel out like those thoughts that don't need to be there.
Yeah. Well, and so to go back to like a fear of maybe that there's those 85,000 chemicals, right, that we don't know about, we always tell everybody, do your best with it. And don't beat yourself up because you didn't know and you've been using a certain product, or think it's all over. No, just change it. So it's like you run out of toothpaste, change to something better. Risewell's a good one, Boca, things like that. You can always ask us for good. I'm trying to still make that recommendation page.
On that note,
Yeah.
Deborah Gallo,
Uh-huh.
she's asking a recommendation on good protein. Is
Okay.
organic protein good?
Well, I put,
Make sure you.
so Deborah's asking like if we recommend a good protein. Proteins, you gotta be careful of buying some of them because they can have heavy metals in them. Vital Proteins, which is used to be a really good brand, they just got in trouble for their collagen with heavy metals. Truvena makes a good one. These are all on Amazon. I looked at Sun Warrior. It's okay. These are all vegan ones. I need to look at more of like the whey ones. Oregon, yeah. Make sure that I need to probably do a post about good protein. I'll do that. I'll do like cleaner ones and do it. The problem with the proteins is like they have a lot of additives and stuff in them, and so like it takes me a minute to like sit and read. But the Truvena one's a good one. Equate Life makes a good brand or a good protein. Sun Warrior, and there's another one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But just like we can tell you all some stuff too, but sometimes it's like doing your own research too. Like I look at this stuff all day long and I'm like overwhelmed by it. And then so I always tell people too to like research your own proteins and stuff like that and like learn. It's good for you to learn this stuff because this stuff isn't going away. I mean, I don't know how many more chemicals they're gonna make. But those are usually the good ones. We use those on our 21-day diet reset. We use those. Those are more pea proteins. Whey can be a problem with some people. Usually what happens with protein powders, if you're having an issue with it, like bloating and stuff, it's because they don't put any fat in protein powders. And so adding a little MCT oil is really good to help with that. Just a little, like, I wouldn't go over a tablespoon of it, but nature always puts proteins with fats together to help you metabolize them, and so that's usually the problem that people have with protein powders as well. But I don't know if I'd buy any from like going to Walmart. Those protein powders, who knows what they're filled with and if they're any good. But investing in a good one is worth it too.
Yeah.
It's 2:00.
It's 2? Okay.
Yeah, well, if y'all have any more questions, like feel free just to write in, send an Instagram thing, and we're obviously available to help.
Yeah. I think our newsletter has some good tips. I can always do like more social media posts about how to like decrease your burden. We always suggest, like meeting with us and detoxing. I help you detox nationwide. I think we need to change on our website. I can't do prescriptions, but supplements are a gray area. So we can help you detox and diet-wise nationwide if you need to. I would suggest as you start like looking at different products, just change one out at a time. So your deodorant's coming up to be, you're almost out of it, look for a new one that might be better, toothpaste, that, just kind of do it that way, slowly do it, because once you go down this rabbit hole, it gets expensive more, but you pay, like you get what you pay for with some of these products too. Either way, it's gonna cost you in the long run. Either pay for it now or later.
Yeah.
When it comes to the toxins and stuff. What else?
Announce your television today.
What?
Announce your television today.
Oh yes, so we so since we can see everybody nationwide, we do televisits. So the best thing is to either, for an appointment, email receptionist@behold.com or call our phone number, 940-783-5761.
And you can text it.
And you can text that number as well and inquire about appointments and things like that. But yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys
Yeah,
watching.
thank you
We'll do
very
this
much.
again next month. Let us know any topics or questions you might have, like for next month, or an idea of our next topic that we have, and we can always talk about that too next time. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yay. Oh, thank you.